In 1983, a dark chapter unfolded between Nigeria and Ghana, and it is a tale that still resonates today. This was triggered by the mass expulsion of Ghanaian illegal immigrants ordered by Nigeria's head of state. This incident sparked a chain of events that led to the birth of the Ghana Must Go Back. The twists and turns of this story will urge you to keep watching until the very end. But before we continue, please like this video for the algorithm, subscribe to my channel and enable post notification so you will not miss my African stories. It all started in the 1970s when Nigeria was experiencing an oil boom while Ghana was undergoing political and economic difficulties. Nigeria, a young and soon to be liberated country with a population of about 100 million people, discovered oil in 1958. Shell, Mobil and Agip were the first companies to set up shops in the country to drill for oil commercially. Despite the military government that plagued the nation at that time, the oil money was stable and hopes were high that Nigeria could flourish. When oil prices surged worldwide in the 1970s, the economy exploded. The golden era had arrived and the country had become Africa's wealthiest, earning it the nickname, the Giant of Africa. Nigerian oil wells were producing 2.3 million barrels per day by 1974. The quality of life has improved. People moved from the countryside to the cities. The immigration was not only from Nigeria but also from other parts of the region. On the other hand, Ghana, the world's largest cocoa producer in the 1960s, was experiencing the polar opposite. The drop in the global price of cocoa and the 1966 coup in Ghana, which toppled independence leader Kwame Nkrumah, triggered a lethal mix of starvation and rebellion. The country's population was roughly 7 million at the time, but several million people decided to travel east to try their luck in the rich land of Nigeria. Ghanaians flocked to Nigeria in such large number that it appeared that every Ghanaian household had a relative working there. Ghanaian instructors were well known for their thoroughness and long, supple beating rods in primary and secondary schools across the 19 states that existed at the time. Neighbors from the west flooded law offices, shoe repair shops, ice cream parlors, restaurants and brothels. However, the then Nigerian government did not wake up one day and decided to remove almost 2 million Africans from the country. Other circumstances led to the expulsion. In 1982, key consumer economies like the United States and Canada went into a recession, which led to a drop in the demand for crude oil and a fall in global prices. The price of a barrel had dropped to $29 in 1983 from $37 in 1980. Around the same time, the United States began producing its oil, reducing demand even further and causing an oversupply. Nigeria, whose economy is nearly entirely based on oil, was particularly heavily struck. By 1982, the country's foreign reserve had been depleted by 90%. Nigeria was left with no choice but to look inwards as it began to feel the pinch. In 1982, as Nigerians prepared for the 1983 general elections, politicians began to utilize phrases like aliens in their manifestos. They attributed the economy's problem to African migrants, particularly Ghanaians. At that time, the politicians claimed that Ghanaians had taken up all the employment and introduced crime to Nigeria, and if elected, they threatened to expel them. Nigeria and Ghana are good allies that have maintained their friendship since before independence. However, in the 1980s, the friendship between Ghana's president, Flight Lieutenant Jerry J. Rawlings, and Nigeria's president, Alhaji Shehu Shagari, was jeopardized. Both African presidents were at odds because President Shagari was a close friend of Ghana's former president, Hila Liman, whom Rawlings deposed. Later in 1982, the Ghana-Nigeria relationship deteriorated to the point where Rawlings raised an alarm that Shagari was plotting to overthrow Liman's government, and Nigeria responded by suspending crude delivery to Ghana under a loan agreement. As the feud between the two governments continued, so did the feud between the citizens. Nigerians were no longer willing to accept foreigners in their country. It was alleged that foreigners in Nigeria were posing a severe threat to the country's tranquility. But before then, in 1980, a Cameroonian expatriate named Mohamed Marwa, alias Meitasine, organized a religious insurrection that resulted in the deaths of a large number of individuals. Meitasine, like many of his followers from Burkina Faso, Niger, and Cameroon, was an illegal immigrant. The robbery at Ekweme's residence was the final straw that broke the camel's back. Alexander Ekweme, the then vice president of Nigeria, was robbed by a squad of armed robbers, most of whom were expatriates. When the cops apprehended the robbers, they learned that 2 of them were Ghanaians. As a result, Nigeria was thrown into chaos. In response, the Nigerian government and the Ministry of Internal Affairs took immediate action. On the 17th of January 1983, the Nigerian Minister of Internal Affairs, Alhaji Ali Baba, declared that all illegal immigrants in Nigeria will be expelled within 2 weeks. These plastic check bags were scattered throughout the place. Those who were able to pack their goods utilized the largest available bag, which happened to be the big bag, now known as Ghana Must Go. The border crossings were a mess, with desperate people carrying chairs on their heads, dragging their checked baggage, and selling whatever they couldn't carry along to pay for the doubled cost of transport. Millions of people fled by any available exit, including through western Nigeria and northern Benin. The number of cases of stampede was on the rise down south, near the Seme border in Lagos. Hundreds of people were placed into open transport trucks and driven to Ghana. However, Ghana's military leader, Jerry Lawrence, ordered the borders with Togo blocked to deter coup plotters and insurgents, preventing movement for days. In response, and to avoid a refugee crisis, Togo closed its borders with Benin. People were trapped in the intense heat and without water around the Benin-Togo border to Lagos, and there was a breakout of contagious disease. The government of the United States offered some assistance by providing 500 tents, 10,000 blankets, and thousands of buckets, which were airlifted by the League of Red Cross Societies. It was a fantastic news for the Ghanaian refugees. They were greeted by relatives and friends with tears in their eyes as they returned home. Jerry Lawrence also paid them a visit at Tema Harbor, assuring them of his government's willingness to assist. This is the true saga behind every Ghana Must Go bag. However, it should be noted that Nigeria and Ghana are still closest friends today, having put the past behind them. In recent times, the advent of fashionable travel bags and boxes has relegated the significance of the Ghana Must Go bags. It is not uncommon to see people travel from one place to another with Ghana Must Go bags. You are either perceived as being poor or old-fashioned. However, while the significance of the big bags cannot be overemphasized, fashion designers like Wurola Oladapo has promoted the beauty of Ghana Must Go, making them into attractive and fashionable styles to wear. Let me know what you think about the Ghana Must Go bag and if you still make use of them for travels. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section, and don't forget to like this video for the algorithm, subscribe to my channel, and enable post notification so you not miss any of my African stories. Thank you.